Hey everybody, this video is for 5/22 Friday. It's going to be a short one, just another reading on one of our amendments, the history of the 19th Amendment. Remember, next week we have two tests. They're not really tests because I'm not going to grade them, but they are going to be things that you were going to experience again in 9th and 10th grade during your U.S. Civics courses there. So take a look at the link in Google Classroom and go to our Mr. Gruch's neighborhood, click Civics. Right here, there are a lot of ways that you can get ready for next Friday's test. I'll probably open it up a little bit earlier just so you can do it whenever you want. It's all online. If you can't do it online, let me know. We'll have to figure out a way to get paper to you or a version of that because I'm not so worried about how you take it. It's how I get the information back to you. So I may include on there paper version, but that one's going to be harder for me to get back. So if you can do the online, that's great. These are the practice ones. So if you clicked on this, it'll bring you to this section, and then you can do this. Name one right only for U.S. citizens. Attend a public school, run for federal office, freedom of religion, freedom of speech, only for U.S. citizens. Remember, some of these, everybody that lives in the United States gets these, but only this one. Correct, I got it right. What if I had said, I'll go to the next question. What if I get it wrong? When is the last day you can send in a federal income tax forms? Normally it's April 15th, but this year they extended it. So I'm going to say July 4th. Oh no, they got it wrong. And they'll tell you how to do it. They'll give you 20 of these. You play this 5, 6, 7 times, you do a good job on your test, okay? We also will have our Bill of Rights test next week, next Tuesday. So watch those videos with the hand gestures. Okay, all of those things. Okay, if you don't know what I'm doing, watch the videos, learn that stuff. It's your rights. Okay, I'm going to quickly read this. Before we do that, of course, we're going to read the questions. 4 questions. Which of the 2 following sentences from the article includes central ideas of the article? Okay, so what are the two sentences that make up the main idea, the purpose? Number 2, how is the central idea of the article developed in the section Origins of Women's Suffrage in the U.S.? So how is it developed? Number 3, which of the following most influenced the deciding vote for the approval of the 19th Amendment? It's a good little story. And number 4, which of the following groups or people would least likely to agree with the idea that women should be granted the right to vote? So of those people, which would be the least likely? Especially that one should probably say in 1920. Okay? All right. History of the 19th Amendment. The 19th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution was passed on August 18, 1920. It granted American women the right to vote, a right known as women's suffrage. At the time the U.S. was founded, its female citizens did not share all the same rights as men, including the right to vote. It was not until 1848 that the movement for women's rights launched on a national level with a convention in Seneca Falls, New York, organized by activists Elizabeth Cady Stanton and Lucretia Mott. Following the convention, the demand for vote became a central part of women's rights movement. Stanton and Mott, along with other activists, formed out organizations that raised public awareness and pressured the government to grant voting rights to women. After a 70-year battle, these groups finally emerged victorious with the passage of the 19th Amendment. Origins of the women's suffrage in the United States. During America's early history as a nation, women were denied some of the key rights enjoyed by male citizens. For example, married women couldn't own property, and no woman had the right to vote. Women were expected to focus on housework and motherhood, not politics. During the 1820s and 1830s, various reform groups, such as anti-slavery organizations, spread across the United States. In a number of these groups, women played an important role. Meanwhile, many American women were starting to resist the idea that the only true woman was a wife and mother focused on home and family. Suffrage movement gets organized. It was not until 1848 that the movement for women's rights began to organize at the national level. In July, Reformers Elizabeth Cady Stanton and Lucretia Mott organized the first women's rights convention in Seneca Falls, New York. More than 300 people attended, including former African-American slave and activist Frederick Douglass. The people at Seneca Falls believed that women should be given better opportunities for education and employment. They also agreed that American women deserved to be involved in politics. A group of delegates, led by Stanton, produced a document called the Declaration of Sentiments, modeled after the Declaration of Independence. It is said that all men and women are created equal. What this meant, among other things, was that delegates believed women should have the right to vote. National suffrage groups established. In 1869, Stanton joined with Susan B. Anthony to form the National Women's Suffrage Association. Their goal was to pass the amendment to the Constitution that would grant women the right to vote. That same year, Lucy Stone and Henry Blackwell founded the American Women's Suffrage Association. The AWSA believed voting rights for women could be best gained through amendments to individual state constitutions. In 1890, the NWSA and the AWSA merged to form the National American Women's Suffrage Association. The new organizations planned to push for women's voting rights on a state-by-state basis. Within 6 years, Colorado, Utah, and Idaho adopted amendments to their state constitutions, granting women the right to vote. In 1900, with Stanton and Anthony getting older, Carrie Chapman Catt stepped up to lead the NAWSA. Progress and civil disobedience. The beginning of the 1900s brought strength to women's suffrage cause. Under the leadership of Catt, the NAWSA achieved early successes for women's voting rights at state levels. Between 1910 and 1918, 17 states and territories extended voting rights to women. In 1918, President Woodrow Wilson became a supporter of women's voting rights. He tied a proposed suffrage amendment to America's role in World War I and the increased role women had played in war efforts. When the amendment came up for a vote, Wilson addressed the Senate in favor of suffrage. However, the amendment proposal failed in the Senate by 2 votes. Another year passed before Congress took up the measure again. Getting the vote. Pay attention. In May 21st, 1919, Representative James R. Mann proposed the House resolution to approve the amendment granting women the right to vote. The measure passed the House by a vote of 304 to 89. This was a full 42 votes above the required 2/3 majority. 2 weeks later, the Senate passed the 19th Amendment by 2 votes over its 2/3 required by a majority, 56 to 25. The amendment was then sent to the states to be ratified or approved. By March of the following year, a total of 35 states had approved the amendment, 1 state short of the 2/3 required for the amendment to pass. Southern states were strongly opposed to the amendment, however. 7 of them had already rejected it before Tennessee's vote on August 18, 1920. It was up to Tennessee to tip the scale for women's suffrage. The outlook appeared bleak. Given the position of Tennessee's state legislators in their 48-48 tie, the state's decision came down to 23-year-old Representative Harry T. Byrne to cast the deciding vote. Although Byrne opposed the amendment, his mother convinced him to approve it. With Byrne's vote, the 19th Amendment was ratified. On November 2nd of the same year, more than 8 million women across the U.S. voted in elections for the first time. It took over 60 years for the remaining 12 states to pass the 19th Amendment. Mississippi was the last to do so on March 22nd, 1984. That's not that long ago. I was 7. Take a moment, answer those 4 questions real quickly, and then do some review work. Consider playing some review games at iCivics. Shoot me any questions that you might have, and take care. Have fun this weekend. See ya.